This is the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast, your source for the strategies, systems, and insights you need to turn your dreams into your destiny. Every week, we dive into dynamic conversations as our host, Nicole Greer, interviews leadership and business experts. They're here to shed light on practical solutions to the challenges of personal and professional. Now, here's your host, a professional speaker, coach, and consultant, Nicole Greer.
Welcome, everybody, to the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. My name is Nicole Greer, and they call me the Vibrant Coach, and we are here to build a vibrant culture, and I have another amazing, epic, vibrant guest with me. His name is Ryan Englin. Did I get that right? Oh
You
my gosh,
did.
good for me. Look at that. All of that schooling paid off. Okay, so let me tell you about Ryan. Ryan is a passionate advocate for small to medium-sized businesses in blue-collar industries, driven by a childhood spent witnessing his father's tireless work as an owner-operator. With a decade of experience in corporate America and as CEO of Core Matters, Ryan empowers business leaders to build amazingly productive companies by focusing on hiring and retaining. That's how they talk in Tennessee, I bet, Ryan. No.
I don't, but yes, some do. Some do.
Retaining the right people. Through his engaging speaking engagements, workshops, and webinars, Ryan shares his unique perspective on process development and recruitment as a marketing activity. And just before this started, we were offline. I'm like, it's all sales and marketing. He's like, yeah. So, offering actionable tips and strategies to revolutionize any business, Ryan's dynamic approach ignites transformation. That sounds vibrant, igniting transformation. That's good. Leaving audiences energized, motivated, and equipped to conquer the challenges of today and tomorrow. Please welcome to the show, Ryan. And look, I have his book right here, everybody. It's awesome.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
I'm so glad you're here. And so the name of the book, Hire Better, People Faster. Does that sound like a good strategy? I'm going to say yes. All right. So I told you what we do is we look inside your book because I like to do little book reports. I think people need to understand, what these books say so that they'll go out and buy it. And so here's the questions that he challenges everybody with. Does your business energize you? Do you have a team that you genuinely enjoy working with? Imagine that. One that shares your vision. Do the people on your team inspire you? Is your business hitting the goals? Do you feel it is easy to find good help? And do you have the confidence to hold people accountable because you know you can replace them if you have to? Hold on, let me repeat that last one. Do you have the confidence to hold people accountable because you know you can replace them if you have to? Oh, Ryan, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me, how'd you get it? How did you find your way into the hiring business? I mean, I heard about Dad. What did Dad do? Talk about Dad a hot second.
Yeah, my dad was an owner operator and he was in manufacturing. So I learned all the skilled trades. And that's the one thing I learned about manufacturing. You got to know electrical, you got to know plumbing, you got to know mechanical, you did all that stuff. And I grew up at the shop. I grew up down there. And, if I was hanging out with Dad after school or on the weekends, we were down there. I tell people to this day, if I walk into a shop with hydraulics, just the smell of the oil and everything it brings me back to childhood. But I watched my dad do that and I watched him labor, and he had this dream of doing more and being more and wanting more. And every time you get close, there'd be a setback, a key person would leave, something. And I grew up thinking that my dad's problem was the problem most businesses is that we don't have enough new customers coming in. Right? That's the problem. There's not enough revenue, because I've heard cash is king and solves a lot of problems, right? And so I watched him do this. And as I got older, I was like, there's no way I'm going into Dad's business, because I see what it's done to him.
That's right. He's worn out. Yeah. Poor guy.
So I went to college and I got a degree, and then I joined corporate America thinking that's going to be better. It wasn't better. I wasn't a corporate guy. But one thing I did learn in corporate was the value of process. And so I became obsessed with processes. How does one thing go to the next thing, go to the next thing? And how do you make sure that when that's solid, you can hire anybody to run it, especially if you train them? And so I did so much interviewing, so much of building teams and all of that. I remember there was a period of time where we were hiring 100 people a month, and I was just nonstop interviews. Like, it was crazy. I'd do 10, 15 interviews a day. It was exhausting.
And how can you even remember who you talked to?
Yeah, they had processes,
One
right?
big fat interview.
Yeah, it was crazy how
Yeah.
fast we were interviewing people. We'd literally have lines of 40 people waiting for their interview just to come in. It was crazy. And
Wonderful you had 40 lined up.
that's what they did. I mean, that's
Yeah.
corporate America, right? And so I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about psychology and interviewing. And I developed an interview process while I was there that
Nice.
corporate really didn't like, which is when I found out corporate wasn't that great. But what I did was I really started interviewing the person, not the
Oh.
mask they were hiding behind.
Mhm.
Right. So I started going off script and started having conversations that weren't the same bullet questions that everybody's asked. Fast forward a little while, I started my own company, wanted to help people like my dad. A couple years in, I couldn't keep customers. And what it turned out was they didn't have a revenue or a lead gen problem. They had a people problem. They had empty trucks. They had machines that weren't running. They had a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't happening inside their business. And so I said, well, you know what? I think I can solve that problem. So I had a client, gave me a shot. 3 weeks later, they were on an ATS. They had more applicants than they knew what to do with. They had more people they were hiring than they knew what to do with. And I was like, that was easy. This is
Easy
just
button.
marketing stuff. It's just a different way of doing it. Fast forward 10 years, I created the corporate hiring system, wrote the book. And, since we're talking to HR people, I can say this.
Say it.
It's the employee experience. It's a deep
That's
dive
right.
into
That's
the
right.
employee experience, the employee life cycle. That's what we do. And that's what the book is all about. I just wrote it for entrepreneurs that don't use those words, right? They don't think employee experience, they think customer experience.
Sure.
And they're really good at that.
Mhm.
How do we create an amazing experience for the customer? But what I found out real early on, especially in service businesses, is that we can have the best customer experience in the world. But if we don't have engaged, happy employees because they have a great employee experience delivering, we're not going to have a good customer experience. So let's focus on the employee experience. They'll deliver a great customer experience. Everybody wins.
Yeah, don't miss
And
that. Don't miss that, everybody. Say that again. The employee experience does what? Hold on, everybody.
oh,
Listen.
when you have an amazing employee experience, your employees are happy, they're engaged, they're productive, they care about your customers, and they deliver an incredible customer experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. Right. So if we just learned that, we're done. Mic drop. Okay. No, we'll
Yeah,
keep going.
that's it.
Okay.
Wrap
We'll
up.
keep going. Wait, no. Let's dive into, okay, let's dive into your core fit hiring system because
Yeah,
I think these 7 steps will help people kind of see what you're trying to do here. And then, of course, we
sure.
want everybody to go out and get the hire better, people faster book that is available, I'm sure, on all the Amazons and the things. Okay. All right. You say in here, you make this big declaration. Ryan says, hiring doesn't have to be hard. There's a
Doesn't.
revolutionary, evolutionary idea.
I just talked to somebody yesterday that a small business, 12 employees, and he
Yep.
goes, I only have two people that have been here longer than a year, my wife and my daughter.
And they're all stuck together because we
They're
got to eat.
stuck. He goes, everybody else leaves. He goes, I'm not the problem. I'm not the problem. It's everybody else. They're lazy. They're entitled. No one wants to work. They all want to work from home and get paid a lot of money to do nothing. That's his mindset.
Yeah.
And
Isn't
so what
that sad?
happens when someone does show up, I've seen this so many times. When someone does show up, guess what? He projects that mindset on that person.
Right. He's looking for everything that's wrong, you know?
Everything that's wrong. And then he
Mhm.
onboards them and says, I shouldn't have to spend time onboarding you. You should just be able to figure it out.
It's
Oh,
right.
you can't figure it out because you're lazy and entitled and
Right.
everything. And
And
it's
not too bright. Mm,
so hiring is hard because we make it hard.
I agree.
If you're in the HR space, we were joking earlier. I'm like HR people and I don't always get along because I'm like, oh, it's really simple. We solve it this way. And they're like, yeah, well, leadership will never let that happen. I'm stuck.
Mhm.
And so, a good friend of mine, she talks about how you got to be able to sell and speak in leadership's language to get them to do what HR knows we need them to do.
That's right.
But I can't tell you how many HR leaders I've talked to have said, you know what? It's kind of toxic here, but I have no control over that. Or they don't onboard people well, but nobody wants to listen to me because I'm just HR. And that was a lesson I learned when I wanted to go into HR right after college is HR doesn't get a lot of respect. They're like the necessary evil.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I run in these circles of the gals and guys who show up for our Society for Human Resource Management meetings that want to learn, want to look up everything they
oh
can.
yeah.
I think that they're ready to hear what you've got to offer because they're wanting something fresh, something new that they can do. And if you can share with them kind of the why the CEO or the whoever would want to say yes, I think they're ready, willing, and able to try.
Well, what I've learned is that leadership wants answers. And most of the time, the people that aren't on the leadership team struggle to say, well, hey, I'm just going to hold up this mirror. Look in the mirror. This might be our problem.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've met CEOs that are like, oh, everybody's lazy and entitled. Nobody wants to work. They have this mindset, just this narrative that's gone over and over and over again that nobody wants to work. And what I found is they're right. If you add a couple of words to that, nobody wants to work for you. And we have
And
to
that's
own this.
true too, isn't it? Yes,
We
yes.
have to own this because I have a bunch of clients that don't struggle with this. They used to, and they've made some adjustments and they don't anymore. And they're working on becoming that employer of choice. People that stick with the program that's in that book,
Hmm.
they'll call me in 2 or 3 years from now and they'll say, it happened. I have no open jobs and I got more people that want to work here than I know what to do with.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic? And really, what you're doing when you hire great people with a great leader with a great mindset is you're building a vibrant culture. That's exactly what you're doing. It's lit up and it's like a little
It's so
magnet, and
true.
all the people flock to the light. Like, I want to
Yeah,
be part of something great.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
so good. All right. Well, you've got this thing called your core fit, right? So what you
yeah.
said, what's at the core? At the core is the core. Talk about the
It's so
core.
interesting. It's so interesting. Like, when I figured out what I wanted to call this and name the company and everything, I was like, you know what? It's all about that connection that we make with people.
Hmm.
If we have a solid, strong connection, if they're connected to us before the interview, after the interview, during onboarding, if we're connected as
Hmm.
human beings and we create, like, I love what Simon Sinek says, it's that belonging. That's what people want. They want to feel like they
Absolutely.
belong. If
Hmm.
we create that, then magic happens. And I think the interesting thing about culture is that if you had 10 people in a room and you asked 10 people to define culture, you'd have 27 different definitions of culture, wouldn't you?
Don't you know? Oh, welcome to
And
my
so,
world.
and I was like, so culture is this big nebulous thing that people don't really understand. But when you really dial it down, it's a heart thing.
Oh, I agree.
And that's
100%.
and that's our core. And the reason that we have core values is because they're values that don't live here, they live here.
That's right. We eat them, we
And
live them, we breathe them. They're authentic, they're real, they're not just
they're
words.
us.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, to me, there's a whole bunch of different types of cultures out there and values out there and everything else. And
Of course.
just because I don't fit them doesn't mean it's bad. Because there's someone out there that'll fit them.
That's right. And that's called job fit, right? And that's the right
We
person
call it
on the
core fit.
bus, all these things we
Yeah.
talk about, right?
Yeah. I use the example, there's these underwater thermal vents, 700 degrees water coming out of them from the bottom of the ocean,
Hmm.
heated up by lava. Like, it's 700 degrees water. Well, guess what? They found life there. They found these little microorganisms that live and thrive in 600-degree water. So you might have a toxic culture or been told you're toxic, or we had a client, they were so proud of how passive aggressive they were. It was a badge of honor to be passive aggressive. You know
Okay.
what? They found people that
Mhm.
thrived in a passive aggressive environment. I didn't, but
No,
they
I don't
found
think
it.
I could work there.
So
What do
that's why
they
I love
make?
working
What
with
do
the
they do
trades.
exactly, those people?
Yeah. Well, here's the irony in that whole story. They are now bankrupt. The
Okay,
CEO
there
ran
we
them into
go.
the ground. So, but I think when we look at the core, and we look at our heart, and we look for people who fit what we believe and what we feel so strongly about,
Hmm.
things get so much easier. And so we call it core values. They're core, they're central to who we are.
Right?
They're an element of culture. Our communication's an element of culture. All that thing lives with inside core in our model. Values, vision, purpose, core story, which is how we communicate those things. That all lives in
Hmm.
core. And if you look at the model, I know nobody can see it right now, but it looks like a
Here it
gear.
is, people.
Oh yeah, if you zoom in on the edges, it looks like teeth, right?
Yes,
It's gear
yes.
because your core permeates into everything that makes
Hmm.
the employee
Hmm.
experience. everything that makes that life cycle. And so when we understand that, that's the place we start. Let's get really clear on who we are, how we behave, where we're going, why we do what we do, and make sure that we're getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
If we do that, the whole rest of the model, way easier. But
Right.
what
You
happens?
set well, it sets the little wheel in motion, right?
It does. But I see it happen way too often. We bring in a consultant, they put up our core values on a wall, they print big banners, they make little coffee mugs, have our core values, and we say we're done. And
Oh,
then nothing happens.
no, we gotta tell stories, we gotta call out the behaviors, we gotta do all the things.
Yeah, there's so much. Yeah, your listeners know, like they know this, but it doesn't happen enough. And that intentionality is so important, which is why we built the rest of the system to say, let's take that stuff and now let's become intentional about it in each of those different areas.
Yeah, I want to tell you a couple of leaders that I work with, and then I want to hear a couple of yours about like original core values. Because one of the things I think is so important is that like the core values are authentic. So I have this leader, Navo, and he is up in Detroit, Michigan. He's got this company called Spire Integrated, and they like put fancy blinds in your windows and you can go disco ball and the ceiling opens up and the
Yeah,
whatever. I mean, they do all these
cool.
things, right? It's really cool. But one of his core values is get, and then it says SH, and then like exclamation point, asterisk, question mark, T done. And that is like one of his core values. And if you talk to him, that's real. He's like, come on, let's go.
Yeah,
We got to make it happen. We have very fancy clients who want fancy things done very quick. And so let's go.
yeah,
And it's just this fun energy, right? And then I have a client out in Colorado, and his name is Neil, and he has a company that makes nutraceuticals, and it's called Mineral Life, or Zemvelo is his business to consumer. And one of his core values is yes and underline exclamation point.
yes,
So
and
yeah, and so
yeah,
his thing is, please don't tell me no. Just say yes, and I can do it today, or I can do it
yeah,
tomorrow,
I
and
love
I
it.
need your help, and I need a resource. But he's like, just
Yeah,
say yes already. So I think these guys, their personalities come out in the core values, and people are drawn to it, like you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a reinforcing steel contractor, rebar, down in Florida, and I'll never forget when we talked to them about their core values. For some reason, just like you pointed out, you've got 2 different companies and there's that one that stands out that
Right.
like that just makes it. That's the good story.
Yeah.
We were talking and I go, "You know what, Jack? It just sounds like no one gives a damn." And he's like, and he just went on his little soapbox. And I'm like, I think give a damn might be a core value of yours.
And so
And now,
I agree with that. You should care, but
yeah,
you should care and give a damn. I mean, the give a damn has a little punch. I like it.
yeah. And so it's on hard hat stickers, it's on vehicle wraps, it's on, and they have a video of like 90 guys at a job site screaming, give a damn. It's like a 6-second clip.
Oh,
Like they
I
just
love
all
it.
embraced it. It is
Yeah,
so cool.
that's so
So
fun.
great. And
Okay.
we've got a painter that we worked with a couple years ago, small, like 35 employees. And he's just like, you know what? These people don't understand the impact. He's just talking through this. They
Right,
don't
right.
understand the impact when they don't show up on time or they don't clean up the job site. He goes, we're all in this together. And he's a big military guy. Like he's got flags and firearms behind him and everything else. And I was like, when are these people going to just understand that you guys are all in this foxhole together? And he's like, yeah, we share the foxhole. And that's their core value now
I
is share the
love it.
foxhole. Like you got to understand that if you want to leave your garbage right here, your buddy standing right next to your teammate is dealing with that.
That's exactly
And
right.
so those are some of the ones that I really like. There was another one we had, it was no micros. I'm like, what is that? He's
Talk.
like, we do not micromanage around here.
No.
Like, and it's those double-edged swords. Have you noticed that? Like some core values are a double-edged sword. So they don't micro, but they also struggle with accountability now, because they don't want to be micro. It's
Yeah.
like a double-edged sword, but they're fun. And I think that the people, they're right when you just can't stop talking about them.
Right.
They're the right ones.
That's exactly right. All
Yeah.
right. So fun. And you give little directions in here about how to get your core values together. And so
I
that's in
do.
there. And so I just real quick core story, tell me a little bit about tease that out just real quick for us. Core
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of times companies, they'll put the values on a banner, they'll write their vision statement and put it on their background of their desktop, and they'll do these things. But what I found is that it's human nature to root things in story. It's the oldest form of
I
communication.
agree.
And the problem that we have too often is like, oh, here's one of our values and here's what it means, and that's it. But then my question is, can you give me a story of how that shows up? And they're like, oh, I can't really think of a give a damn story. Well, then it's probably not the right value for you. So what we do with the core story is we really start digging deep and saying, okay, here's your purpose, like why you do what you do. I like to say, why do you get out of bed on days you don't want to get out of bed? Right? That's your purpose. And then we look at your behaviors and everything else, and we tie it together into a story that really defines the leadership team and their organization. Some people call it something like a core values speech. You might have heard that term before. But instead of ours being a speech, it's connecting people through story. That's more important than just talking to them because they're so used to being talked to by leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to tie their purpose, visions, and values into a story that makes sense. And here's the big reason why. When your frontline employees, who most of the time we don't pour enough into, go home at the end of the day and they're having a beer with their brother, and their brother's like, so tell me about the company you work for. It's okay. Yeah, they did some big town hall party today or something. They don't have anything to say. But if you can root them in story back to the organization, they're like, let me tell you a quick story about the company. And are they going to get all the values right and all the purpose? No, but
No.
they're going to get close enough where that brother is going to go, tell me more. I want to know more.
Right.
And that's the whole
And the
point.
brother's qualified for the open position or whatever.
Look at that. Well, I talk about employee referral programs in my book and why they don't work, because most don't work as well as they should. And it's because we don't equip our people.
No, they don't
Unless
know
you're a
how to
recruiter,
refer. Right.
yeah, they don't know.
Right.
So you know what you do? You build a story. You share the story everywhere all the time. And then when they walk out and they get 30% of the story right, it's probably enough to get someone interested.
Yeah.
That's
And
what we
what I
got to
love
do.
about what you're saying is like if they're in enough meetings over enough years, they'll get the story down pat. In fact, they
Yeah,
might even tell it a little bit better than you do. And
absolutely.
and you'll have that one employee that brings everybody to you. Because
One
I've
of the,
had that in my own career where I had Phoebe.
yeah,
Phoebe loved working for Nicole. And so she brought all sorts of peeps my way. You know what I
yeah.
mean? She was a pro.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things that we encourage our clients to do, because they forget about it, right? That's the biggest problem. They forget to be intentional and remind people. We set a process up that says if you're in a meeting with more than two people, which we do lots of Zoom meetings these days,
Oh my
more
goodness.
than two people, the first 5 minutes, instead of the, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Is we're going to start, we're going to pick one of our values and we're all going to tell a story about it.
I love that.
And every time we're in a meeting with more than two people, we're going to pick one value, whoever facilitated the meeting, they'll bring it up, and then everybody has to tell a story.
So good.
And over time, it's not going to be long before people start remembering your values.
Yeah. I worked with the town of Mooresville, North Carolina, and I worked with the Public Works Department. And they were having trouble recruiting people for the sanitation department. So
Mm,
we went and talked to all the people who had worked in the sanitation department for 5 years or longer. Why do you work in the sanitation department?
mm,
And we had this gentleman named George and Barry, and they were like Mutt and Jeff, and they were in a truck and they had been picking up trash all over Mooresville, North Carolina for I don't know however many years. And we videotaped them and people don't know this, but like on your Indeed ad, on your employee website, you can put a video for people to watch. And so these two dudes are on there talking about, well, we do it because we love people. They were telling me all these stories. Well, turns out that Barry is a preacher, and so he's a
mm.
great storyteller. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? And so
Wow.
he's like, we used to have this woman. I'd probably get fired for telling you this, but we would open her gate and bring her trash can out and we would empty it. And then we would open her gate back up and put her trash can back in. But the woman couldn't get to the corner with a trash can. And
Mm.
he did it for however many years. Customer service at its ultimate, but he's worried about getting fired because you're not supposed to enter the property. You
Oh,
know,
I know.
so anyway, I adore what you're saying about this core story. I think everybody
Yeah.
needs to do this.
Yeah.
Genius.
And the sanitation guys, I mean, you got to have a servant's heart to do that job. You just
Oh,
have
are you
to.
kidding me? Oh,
And it's incredible. That's where you got to go to get the stories, is that front line.
I agree.
You probably got that from my book, but most of the work we do is the front line because they get a bad rap. There's recruiters and there's companies out there that are like, oh, executives will help you hire them because there's money there. But your $18 an hour entry level person, they just turn it. I'm like, no, that's the person we pour into because guess what? It's their shoulders you're standing on to build your business.
Oh, 100%.
And so that's a big thing. But you mentioned something that I do want listeners, the HR team out there to hear. If you're struggling with recruiting, go to your leadership team and say, hey, we've got a bunch of customer testimonials. Would you mind if we shared some employee testimonials?
Yeah.
Because nobody ever thinks that. I've been in rooms of hundreds of people and they're like, oh yeah, we got great customer testimonies. How many employee testimonies do you have? Never thought about that before.
These people been here 32 years and that is out there.
Yeah. So don't assume that they're not there because leadership won't do it. What I found is leadership often hasn't thought about it.
That's exactly right. They've got other things that they're cooking. That's right.
They're not thinking about it. And you go to them and they're like, heck yeah, let's do it. Can I do one? Right? Like they're getting excited.
Right. And what do you need? You need an iPhone. That's it. That's all you need.
Oh yeah. Do not overly produce them. 60 seconds. Tell me why you like working here. Why do you stay? And then ask your boss too. Say, hey, do you mind if I do some stay interviews? I'll even set a quota. And then you make your stay interviews, your employee testimonials. You're solid. You do 2 birds with 1 stone.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Okay. Don't miss that tip. Did you get that? Stay interviews, =, testimonials, 2 birds, 1 stone. Love it. Okay.
Done.
All right. So we got the core. All right. And so you got to get the book. Don't forget, everybody. Look at this.
Yeah.
Hire better people faster. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, so the first thing on here is you got 3 things around the outside of your model. One is attract, the next one is hire, and then retain. But we want to attract, and so how do we find people? You have in here the core fit profile and a 360 marketing plan. So give us little highlights on that one.
So here's, if you haven't seen it yet, on the front of the book, there's some fishes.
Yes.
Right, some fish, and there's a little now hiring hook. Okay. And I didn't carry the fishing analogy too much throughout the book, although I did mention it for a second. But if you think about this, if you wanted to go fishing, have you ever been fishing?
All the time.
I love fishing. What's the first decision when you're going to go fishing? Like you've already decided you're going to go fishing. What's the first decision you make? And by making that decision, every other decision's made for you, or it's just easier?
Where I'm going to go fishing? Which pond, stream? Okay.
What do you want to catch?
Oh. I
So when I say it, people are like,
go,
oh yeah.
well, I'm married to the hunter fisherman extraordinaire, so I'm along for the ride.
You may not care.
Okay, let's be honest. The first thing I say is, what book will I take with me?
Yeah. I had one guy say, how many beers do I need to pack? Like that.
Okay, well that thing. Maybe.
Oh. But once you know the fish you want to catch, that tells you your bait, your gear, your location, time of day, season, tells you almost everything. Right? Do you need a boat or not? But we often don't think that way. What we think is, if we carry that analogy over to recruiting, what we think is, oh, we just need to fill a position. We need an accountant. Well, that's not the fish you want to catch. The fish
what kind of accountant do you want? Right.
Yeah, let's talk about someone that aligns to our core. Let's talk about someone who has a certain skill set or a certain mindset or behaviors. Most people will agree with me that it's easier to teach skills, how to do the job, than it is to teach culture fit.
Amen.
Right? But we never take the time to say, let's talk about the right person. And that's what find is all about. When we talk about attract, finding people, we're not looking for an individual. We're looking for the right fishing pond. Because once we know the type of person we want on our team, we're like, well, where do they hang out?
Right.
Where do they spend their time? And this is a newsflash, probably for a lot of people. Most qualified individuals that are a good culture fit and are not toxic and have a good, strong work ethic are not on the job boards.
No, they're happy
They're not
at work.
on the job boards.
Right.
But what do we do as recruiters? Well, we don't know who we want to get, so let's just go to Indeed. Yeah. Well, who's on Indeed? The unemployed and the unemployable. And so when we get really clear on who it is that we want, our employee referral programs become more effective, our passive recruiting, our grassroots recruiting, our community involvement, all that stuff becomes so much more clear because now we say, this is who we want. This is where they hang out. And we can go recruit them there.
So good.
Are you ready to build your vibrant culture? Bring Nicole Greer to speak to your leadership team, conference, or organization to help them with their strategies, systems, and smarts to increase clarity, accountability, energy, and results. Your organization will get lit from within. Email her at nicole@vibrantculture.com and be sure to check out Nicole's TEDx talk at vibrantculture.com.
Okay, so we've got all that figured out, and you're going to get the
Yep.
book. And the next thing is we're going to automate. And I think this is the part where one of the big things in the SHRM world right now, Ryan, is like it's called Department of One.
Mm.
Like that's what we're calling it because there's like one guy or gal and they do everything soup to nuts, right? So
Yeah.
if you can, like, there are whole groups of people that meet. I'm a department of one, and how are you surviving? And
Yeah.
how are you surviving? And so
Yeah.
if you can automate something for these fine folks, tell us how to do that. Tease that
And
apart.
yeah, and just to be clear, automate does not mean a machine does it.
Okay.
If
But
you look at,
but it's
if you
that
read through the book,
process. Yeah.
automate means it gets done without you doing it. Doesn't mean it's a machine, right?
Okay.
So you can automate part of the screening process by having an automatic email go out to the candidate and say, hey, here's the next step that I need you to take in order to get to the next step. I don't have to do anything. It can be a pre-hire assessment. It could be them responding to an updated questionnaire. It could be something where you just automatically create an email that goes out that says, hey, tell me your favorite thing about your last job. Well, I can tell you that probably 60% won't even reply to you.
Right. And then
So you
therefore
just took your
you
pipeline of 700 down to like 300 by sending one email. But for some reason, and this is where I struggle with recruiters sometimes, I've run into a lot of recruiters that have this belief that number of contacts, or busy work, as I like to call it, equals productivity. And so if they let the ATS screen, or they let knockout questions do their job, or they automate getting to the next step, they often feel like they're losing and they're not winning in that sense. And so they resist that automation because they're like, no, I can do 6,000 candidates a month. I'm going to do all 6,000. I'm like, but wouldn't you rather do like 60 and
Right.
they're all good ones?
Right.
Let the system do its job. Define really great knockout questions. Let the ATS automatically reject people. And I know some of you people won't have a say in this, but if you're on an ATS that will not auto reject people, go get a different ATS, because I know they're out there. They will not auto reject people because they have this belief that everybody should look at it. No, there are some people that you don't need to spend your time with. And not to make fun of them, but the reality is not everybody's going to get the job. We want the best of the best to rise to the top. Let's spend our time with them.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of automation. And then the other thing that we talk about in automation is the employee referral programs. Spend time training your people how to recruit for you. If you're an organization of 500 and you feel like you're a department of one, there are 500 recruiters on your team.
Isn't that lovely?
You just got to teach them to recruit. Spend time doing that. It'll change your world.
So good. Yeah. All right. Interview. I think this is a big thing, right? Here's the thing. I don't think people are taught how to interview. I think it's an art form. It's also got a little science in it. And, I was so lucky. One of the first companies I ever worked for, corporate America, they had this program called Success by Selection. It blew my mind. When I went through that class, I was like, oh, that's how you interview people. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk a lot? What?
Yeah. 30%. That's the max.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
30%.
I'm a good talker. I didn't know I was supposed to stop.
Most HR people are. They're good talkers. Yeah, so I'm a little different when it comes to the interview. So I'm a big fan of the structured interview in the sense that everybody goes through the same culture assessment, culture interview process. So our interview is broken up into 4 sections. The pre-qualification, usually it's a phone screen, a pre-hire assessment, something like that. Like, just let's make sure we're even moving forward.
That's right. Don't
And then
invite them in
culture
without talking to them on the phone. I don't even understand that.
Well, sometimes if you only get 2 or 3 candidates, like you just want them in. You don't even
Maybe.
talk to them
Yeah.
face to face. Then we do culture fit assessment, the
Okay.
culture fit interview, which a lot of people think is backwards because they want to assess them for position fit. Can they do the job? And here's what I've learned. If we find someone that's a culture fit and they happen to apply for the wrong job because they don't have the skills or experience, we can take a step back and say, hey, you're not a fit here, but you're a fit for us. Let's figure out another place that you might fit in the company.
Right.
Whereas if you do it the other way and you do position fit, oh, you weren't fit for that accounting role, you just move on. They could have been the best culture fit that could have learned it. So we do culture fit first. Then we do position fit. And then finally, the last part is we do what we call the pullback offer.
All right.
I'm going to get some slack for this. But
Okay.
basically what it is I bring you in for an offer, right? And I say, hey, before we get to that, kind of pull it back a little bit. Before we look at this together, let's talk about some expectations. Let's set some really good expectations with each other. You know, we're big on being on time, and you were 2 minutes late to the last interview. Let's talk about how that might impact your career here. Is that going to be a problem? And I believe if we're going to fight with someone, let's do it up front.
Yeah.
Let's not turn an eye on these yellow flags, right? Because if it's a red flag, you disqualify them. But these yellow flags, these things that, like, you know, if you get enough of them, you want to get rid of the person. And the way I describe the pullback offer is I talk about this. So when I got married, we've been married almost 20 years now. I remember that first few months was rough. I learned things like, did you know there's a right way to fold a towel?
Yes.
No,
I
didn't know
instructed
that.
David Greer on this early on as well. You boys are lucky. What lucky
I
boys you
learned.
are.
You know, there's a right way to load the dishwasher and do dishes.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Did you know the hamper
What's your
isn't?
bride's name? What's her name?
Yeah, my wife. Her name's Elisha. She's awesome.
I love her. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did you know that the hamper it's not just like a recommendation? Like clothes actually have to go in.
That's true too.
The shoes have to go in a certain place. Did you know there's a right way to squeeze the toothpaste?
Yes, from the bottom.
And toilet paper? Oh,
Yes.
it goes there's a certain way.
Yes.
But see, no one ever told me this stuff. So we learned it really hard during the honeymoon phase. And could you imagine if we pulled up to the house and before we got in, so not romantic, I pull out a checklist. I'm like, all right, honey, towels, how do we fold them? All right, I got it your way because I don't care. Toilet paper, got it. It goes over the top, right? Like
It does go over the
toothpaste,
top.
yeah, we squeeze from the bottom and we roll it up. Perfect. And I checked all these boxes. And we had that conversation before we walked into the house together. Like, how much more peaceful would that first couple of months
Be
be?
a whole lot more hugging and kissing. That's what I know.
Except for the hugging and kissing, it would be a whole lot easier when we hire people after having these conversations, right?
Right.
Let's talk about what on time means. Let's talk for a second about what attention to detail means. We've got this core value of give a damn. Let's talk about that for a second. Here's what give a damn means to me. Now, you tell me, how far away is that from what you thought it meant? Because that's the gap we have to bridge. And if we're going to bridge that gap, let's do it now. Let's not wait 3 months until I'm like, I want to fire this person.
Right.
So that's why we call it pullback offer. It's expectation setting. But here's the big takeaway from all this. I can teach you to do the job. I can teach you to use my software. I can teach you so much. And I'm probably going to do it anyways because it's part of onboarding. I can't teach you to show up on time. I can't teach you to give a damn. I can't teach you to share the foxhole. I can't teach you yes and. I can't teach those things. So let's build an interview process that assesses for those things.
Amen.
Let the other stuff take care of itself. And don't ask questions. I hate question-based interviews. Let's build a process. So let's tell people real early on, hey, interview tomorrow at 7 a.m. We're going to get started bright and early. I need you here 12 minutes early because we have a culture where we show up early for our meetings. They show up at 7 a.m. Well, you failed question 1. Did you show up on time?
Oh my gosh. I wonder if there's a company that does that, shows up early for their meetings. Wow. Yeah, that's we can
But
dream.
that's the idea.
I
Think
love your
instead
idea.
of how do I ask them questions? How do I validate the behaviors that I want? We have a question. We do a lot of work in construction and the trades. And one of the things we'll say at the end of the phone screen is, hey, by the way, I want you to show up dressed to work. And that's it. We leave it a little vague because I want to know, are you going to come in boots? Are you going to come in board shorts?
Flip-flops, yeah.
I want you to come like you're going to be out on the job site because you know what? If I like you, I'm going to give you a shop tour. And I can't have you in a shop tour in Crocs.
Right. Got to have steel-toed on. That's right.
Yeah. But I don't want to tell them that. I want to know if they get it. Now, if they show up in Crocs, I'm going to say, this is interesting. Tell me how you normally show up to work. But now we can have a conversation about behavior and mindset that would have taken us 3 months to figure out on the job.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the interview process and why I love it so much. I geek out on interviewing. I
I
love
can
it.
tell. You're totally geeking, and I love it. I love
Yeah,
your
I love it.
geekiness. All right,
Thanks.
so you hire this person, you're going to onboard them. This could be a whole hour talking
Oh,
about.
it could be a series.
Oh my God, let's do that. Let's talk.
Here's
Give us the
I'm gonna break it
highlights, and
down.
then maybe you can come back. We can talk about
Three-step
onboarding because
three-step
onboarding.
onboarding process.
Okay,
Ready? There's
I'm
3
ready.
steps to onboard.
So
easy. So first off, onboarding is a process. It is not an event. Be really clear on that.
yeah,
You should be
it's not
re-onboarding
2
your
hours on
people.
Friday.
Oh, yeah. It's not 2 hours on Friday. But you should be re-onboarding people too. Because how
Oh,
often do
100%.
things change and the person has been there 3 years has no idea?
Oh, 100%
So
changes all the
it's a
time.
process, not an event. But here's the thing. When someone is new to the team, so I'm very much people first, employee first. I want to think about what they're going through. Think about what they're going through. They just quit their job. They're praying that this is better than the last one. They have no idea who anybody is. They have no friends.
Yeah.
They don't even know when they're getting their first paycheck yet, right? There's all these unknowns they're going into. And what do we do? They show up.
It's scary. Let's just say
It is very scary.
Yes.
And then they show up on day one and they walk in the front office and the receptionist looks up and goes, "Who are you?" "I'm here for my first day." "Do you know who your supervisor is?" Like, what did I do? They don't even know who I am.
That's right. And they're like, sit down. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And then you sit down and then they come back 2 hours later. "Oh, we found you. John's coming out. He's going to give you the tour and everything else. But we got some bad news. HR didn't finish your paperwork. Your background check's not back yet. You've got no IT credentials. So you can't really log in the system. So you're just going to shadow John for the day." Like, how often do we do onboarding like that? A lot. And so here's what I'd rather you do. Instead of worrying about putting that person to work, make sure that you celebrate them being there. Stop celebrating people retiring or leaving and start celebrating when people show up.
Right. Yeah. We could have a sign, balloons. We could have a welcome gift, a swag bag. We could have so many fun things.
Yeah, just celebrate them. You're hiring
Yeah.
a rock star. I talk about rock stars a lot. If you're hiring a rock star, celebrate them like a rock star.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. 3 steps in onboarding. First one is people need to know how to think how you think. That is the first thing. And I tell people all the time, if in the first 2 weeks, they don't do a lick of work, but they figure out how to belong and how to think and how to behave like you do, you are just setting them up for skyrocket success.
That's right.
Think how they think. First 2 weeks. In the first 4 weeks, I want you thinking, how do we do like we do? You're teaching them process. You're not going click here, click here, click here. You're talking, this is how we do processes, right? This is how we operate. Big picture, holistic. And they're learning how to do like you do. And then finally, in the first 12 weeks, they're learning how to win like you win. What does success mean? How do you performance manage? How do you help people achieve their career goals? And so when you teach them to think like you think, do like you do, and win like you win, that's a recipe for success and onboard.
That's right. That's right. People can't read your mind. And the other thing is you're talking about how we're going to have true employee engagement from the get-go. You know,
Oh, yeah.
all this stuff about employee engagement, I think it's important, and I'm there. I'm with everybody. But the best employee engagement I ever had in my life is I had a leader who talked to me and taught me and brought me up and showed me how to do things right. And then I was successful. I got promoted. I made money. I got the
Yeah.
better percentage at raise time. That's employee engagement in my book. So I love that.
You know what we say when it comes to engagement, which you're getting to,
Right. That's the
Onboarding?
next thing on the wheel,
What a great
friends.
segue. What a great segue. Here's what I've learned about employee engagement, especially on the front line. This is what I've learned. People don't care about your business as much as you do
Right.
until you care about their personal life as much as they do. And that's the problem. How many times have you heard a leader say they just need to leave their drama at home? How many times have you heard a supervisor say he can't get his act together because he's going through some stuff? I need to terminate him. How many times have we seen that? You know what? You hired a human being. You get the
Right.
good, the bad, the ugly, the drama. You get it all. We are not compartmentalized beings with switches that we can turn on and off as much as we want that. That is not reality.
That's correct.
So if you find out that Susan's got a kid that's dealing with addiction and it's tearing her family apart, and it's affecting her performance, there are ways to be there for her, not enable or tolerate poor performance because you still have business to run,
Of course.
but there are ways to be there for her and her family. There are ways to get her help. And if you take 2 minutes to go get her help or help her get help, because when you're in that cloud, it's so hard to figure it out on your own. Take 2 minutes to go figure that out, you create a lifelong employee. We run behavioral assessments a lot. And we did this one for an HVAC contractor. They had this, it was their top technician, year after year, top guy, could sell more, could do more. It was incredible. And all of a sudden, his performance just started going down. And of course, like most small businesses, they did nothing until they were ready to fire him.
Right.
I was like, before you fire
Like,
him, let's
what
do
got
this.
into Mike? Right.
Yeah, let's assess him, because this assessment that we run actually looks at some of the psychological stressors he's dealing with. So we ran the assessment, and we're sitting down. I'm sitting with the president, technician, and me, and we're having this conversation. And we're like, hey, you're seeing a lot of stress in this area of your life right now. What's going on? And he just wells up and starts crying.
Aw.
And he goes on to tell us how he's going through this horribly painful divorce. She's taking the kids, taking the money, everything. And he thought he was doing a good job of still doing a good job. He thought he was doing a good job of
Yeah,
hiding
but
it
he's just got
at
a
work.
blind spot. Yeah.
You're in that cloud. It's hard to see. And so what they did was we sat down, and of course, at this point, they're like, okay, we can't fire him. We got to help him
Right.
out for
Poor
this.
guy. He needs a paycheck.
And so
Right.
we asked a simple question. We can't just tolerate this. We can put you on leave if you want or something. That doesn't help. What can we do to support you in this? And he says, the biggest stressor for me is I don't know when my attorney is going to call. I don't know when I'm going to have to go to court. I don't know when I'm to go collect paper. I don't know if I'm going to get to go see my kids. I don't know these things.
Right. She's
And
pulling
all
these
that
levers on
uncertainty
me.
in my life is creating way too much weight for me to really focus at work. And we sat down and we said, well, how about this? What if we can commit to creating flexibility in your schedule when you give us enough notice on when you need flexibility? And they agreed that if within 24 hours, if he found out on a Tuesday that he needed Wednesday afternoon off, that would give them enough time to redo the schedule. And they said, we can't do this forever, but we are willing to work with you for the next 6, 9, whatever they agreed on. We're willing to do this to help you through this time. And here's the thing, they didn't have to wait 9 months for his performance to go back up. As soon as they removed that weight, that burden from him, within weeks, he was one of the top techs again.
Yeah.
And so as much as we want to think, let them leave their stuff at home, they got to check their stuff at the door. If you can be there for them and care about the things, empathy, true empathy, you can do amazing things in getting people to engage.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And here's a guy who's getting all the love ripped out of his life, and here the company comes in and shows him some love. I mean, come on. That's so
Just
beautiful.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yep. Good. Okay. So this is part of retain, by the way, right? We were doing attract, hire, retain. We have one thing left: assess.
Yeah. So most people think this means performance reviews.
Right.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Here's where I think we mess up with assessments. Too often we look at individuals as the problem, and we're assessing individuals to fix what really is a much bigger issue.
Right. Systemic.
And so when we talk about assess, I want you to look at your process. That's what we're talking about. Assessing your employee experience, assessing your recruiting process, your onboarding, your hiring. I want you assessing those things. So like one of the metrics is time to first contact, right? And I'm not talking about the automated ATS sent that we got your application, will be in touch. I'm talking how long between that application and the first time a human being contacts somebody. I want to assess that, because I can promise you that if you can shorten that and treat it like a sales lead, we talked about it being like sales.
That's what it is.
The higher quality people will respond. But if you wait a week because you're like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, guess what? Those high quality people, those A players got jobs already.
Oh, that's right.
Someone was willing to move faster than you.
That's right.
So when we're assessing, we're looking at our process and we're making sure that we're dialing it in so that we get the right kind of people, like the people that fit our core, into our organization.
So good. All right. I don't know about y'all, but I love Ryan, and I love his book, and I love his system. Here it is again. If you're on the YouTube, hire, better people faster. And his company's called Core Matters. We started with the core. So, Ryan, if somebody wants to hire you, put you on stage at a SHRM meeting, do
Yeah.
something fantastical with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, LinkedIn is the easy answer. I'm all
Yes.
over it.
Yep.
And then they can go to corematters.com. That's my website.
Okay.
And if someone's interested in my book, if they'd like a free copy, I'd be willing to give them out. So
Stop.
you got to help me out with shipping and handling a little bit, but it's still less to go into Amazon.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
go to corematters.com/free book,
Okay.
you go there, you sign up. I'll leave an autograph and send you a copy.
Oh my
So
goodness. That's so good. All right, everybody. It's been another beautiful episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. And I have had the amazing Ryan, who's located in Tennessee. He will send you a free book. You just got to help him out with the shipping. And you can find him on the LinkedIn. And here's what we'd like you to do: go down right now, right now. Go down, go down, go down, and press the like button and leave a love note for Ryan. Say, this is what I loved about what you said. He would like to get your feedback, and so would I. And I'm just so grateful for you taking the time and energy to spend an hour with me on the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast.
it went so fast. I had such a good time. Thank you for the great questions. I love this stuff.
Yep, me too. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more like-minded listeners. Remember, the journey to building a vibrant culture never stops. Stay inspired, keep nurturing your vibrant culture, and we can't wait to reconnect with you on the next exciting episode of Build a Vibrant Culture podcast.